What's going on, everybody? It's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and one of the inevitable things has happened. Now, this is something we've all been expecting. One of the two long rumored deals, but to be honest, I always figured this one was happening. I don't believe the other one is going to happen at all, basically. But Nintendo have officially announced and officially confirmed that the Switch Lite is now a thing. As you'd expect, it's a cut down, smaller featured version of the Nintendo Switch. And you might be wondering, Q, what does that mean? What do you mean, and what do we get when you look at a Switch Lite? When you talk cut down features and cut down version, what do you get in general? Well, we're going to run through some of this first, and then I'm going to give my thoughts on the whole thing right at the end. So as you'd expect, it keeps the same form factor as the regular Switch. It's just not as high and it's not as wide. It's still the same depth, but that kind of makes sense. Straight away, there's a couple of important things to note. Is that number one, this does not, I repeat, does not have the ability to connect to a TV and output in docked mode. It's not just that it doesn't come with a HDMI cable and it doesn't come with a dock. It literally cannot do those features, even if you buy them separately. So it is a handheld designed only system. There's also the removal of the kickstand, which kind of makes sense considering that this is designed for handheld gameplay only. And it does not feature removable Joy-Cons. The controllers on this one are basically one big built-in unit on both sides. The right hand side is pretty much exactly what you would expect, but the interesting change on the left hand side is that the four little buttons that were one of the absolute awful ideas that turned out to be their shitty little D-pad is actually replaced by a proper D-pad. Now, don't everyone go crazy and celebrate just yet, because if you remember, the Nintendo Switch Pro controller had a proper D-pad, but it was an absolutely awful D-pad. So just because it has a D-pad doesn't automatically mean it's going to be a good one. More on the D-pad a little bit later. It's also important to note that it does not feature HD rumble and it does not have the IR motion tracker camera in the right Joy-Con because there's no Joy-Cons, so there's no HD rumble and there's no infrared tracker. So as such, it only properly supports handheld mode gameplay, doesn't properly support tabletop mode, and doesn't support TV mode at all. Now, price. This one is going to vary a little bit because of regional differences and whatnot, but as a comparison, the original Nintendo Switch launched in 2017 at $300 or €330, and the recommended price on the Switch Lite is $200, which will likely be about €220 if not €230. As for game compatibility, it technically runs all games for the Nintendo Switch that are compatible with handheld mode. There are one or two that don't work in that regard. And some games may require additional purchases of controllers, like say Joy-Con or whatnot. Think 1-2 Switch. You're going to need separate Joy-Cons to be able to play that. The storage is still the same at a laughably paltry 32 gigabytes. The screen is slightly smaller at 5.5 inch touchscreen, still 720p, compared to the regular Nintendo Switch 6.2 inch touchscreen at 720p. And it has a slightly better battery life. Now, I'm not sure if this is down to an actual bigger battery or just a slightly improved process with the manufacturing and efficiency in the chipset, but the original quoted battery life on the Switch is between 2.5 to 6.5 hours, which is absolute bullshit because you'll get 2.5 to 3 hours out of actual proper use. Sure, you'll get 6.5 hours out of it if you leave it sitting there on the main menu not doing anything with everything turned off on the lowest screen brightness, but realistically, if you're playing it, 2.5 to 3 hours. But the Switch Lite goes for 3 to 7 hours. So it's an ever so slightly better battery. Color wise, the standard version is going to be available in 3 different colors. It comes in a really weird turquoise, a really cheap looking grey, or a strange yellow. There will also be an upcoming Pokemon Sword and Shield version, which mixes and matches a kind of blue and berry colors. As well as on the back, it has Zacian and Zamazenta kind of etched into it. Also listed for the same price as $200 and does not include either version of the game. The Pokemon version will be available from the 8th of November, whereas the regular version will be available from the 20th of September. Now we're going to hit up a couple of extra little tidbits before we go any further. Naturally, because of the inclusion of a proper D-pad, everyone just kind of blew their load straight away. Oh my god, D-pad Joy-Con official coming soon, blah blah blah. For all intents and purposes, Nintendo have come out and said there are no plans or nothing to announce in terms of further variations of Joy-Cons. That's specifically relating to the possible release of a Joy-Con with a real D-pad. Now again, that kind of makes sense because the whole idea behind the Joy-Cons, even though I do consider them possibly the worst game controllers I've ever used in my life, I understand that the principle behind a Joy-Con is to be able to take one of them, turn it sideways, and no, not stick it straight up your candy ass, but to be able to use it like a regular controller. If you turn it sideways, you have the D-pad, or well, you have the analog stick, which would work as the D-pad, if you will, and you have the 4 face buttons. So while it's absolutely awful to use as a real regular controller, I understand why it exists like that. I'm not defending it, I still think it's fucking awful. But again, I see why they're not looking to replace it in that regard. But of course, Nintendo being Nintendo, the retardation doesn't stop there. Nintendo have confirmed that you'll be able to transfer save files between the Switch and Switch Lite. Eventually. That's right, it seems that the ability to properly or at least easily transfer save files between your Switch and your brand new Switch Lite on launch day or whenever will not be available. Again, Nintendo being absolutely Nintendo in the worst of ways. Now someone's going to bring up cloud saves and all that, but you got to remember, let's say you get a Switch Lite on day one and you want to transfer everything over. Oh look, suddenly you got to remember all your games. Not every game supports cloud saves. You're fuck out of luck right there and then. If only there was some little small storage medium that was widely available and easily transferable between every single device in this regard that you could put your save files on. Maybe a micro-sized card of some sort. Someone should really get on inventing one of those. It might make something like this for obsolete companies. It might just really help them out with something. It's almost like they have no idea what they're doing in some regards. I remember when I got my new 3DS XL on launch day, and what could I do? Oh, right. I could transfer everything over using a micro SD card. Crazy how technology exists all the way back then that can do that. Hey, we shouldn't talk about that. I mean, look at Nintendo Switch and the online service. The Nintendo DS could do better voice chat. The Nintendo Wii could do better voice chat. But either way, it's just Nintendo being Nintendo in that regard, and I don't support that at all. I think it's an awful idea. Now, back to what do I think about the Nintendo Switch Lite as a whole. I can just let out an absolutely easily resounding, what the fuck is the point of this? This runs in the same way, the same shape, the same form as handheld mode only. You are going to get games that usually look like arse on the Switch on a TV in docked mode, which run and look even worse, mostly in standard definition, on the handheld screens. You know why? Because the Switch, unlike the 3DS, the Switch, unlike the DS, the Switch, unlike the Game Boy Advance, the Switch, unlike the Game Boy Color, the Switch, unlike the Game Boy, it just does not have the games properly developed for it, which is why the majority of stuff runs and looks like absolute dirt. It's trying to play games that it shouldn't be able to play. It shouldn't be games that shouldn't be on the console, on the platform, and you're getting a cancerous performance and a cancerous experience out of it. I've always maintained that if the Switch marketed itself as a handheld, essentially, no, it is officially a home console and it will be judged as such. Its hybrid and portability features are secondary. It is officially a console, a home console as per Nintendo, and it will be judged as such. If they had launched the Switch Lite as the basic version, the regular version of the Switch, and the games had been tailor-made for it, like they were for all their previous handhelds, the Switch would be even better. It would be phenomenal. It would be what we're asking for. I've always maintained originally that way back before the Switch even existed, that the sequel and successor to the 3DS would be what I like to dub the HDS, which is pretty much what the Switch Lite is from a hardware side of it. Unfortunately, the software does not reflect that, which is why pretty much everything on there is dirt. So, I mean, just who the fuck is going to buy this kind of thing? It's especially funny when you take into the name of the whole situation and, well, the whole premise of the Switch, to be able to switch from handheld to docked on your TV, which you can no longer do with a Switch Lite. Not very Switch, is it, if you can't switch? I mean, sure, you can call it the Nintendo bitch, but still. I just think this is a fucking laughably bad product. With all these features removed, all the ability, everything that it can and can't do is just mind-blowing. And it just makes me wonder, who the fuck is gonna buy this? I don't know, I just think it's an awful idea. Like I said, I'm going to round out the video, but if this was the original version of the Switch and the games were tailor-made for the proper mobile handheld platform, it would be brilliant. It would make so much sense. I would likely have so much praise for the proper successor to the 3DS. Instead, you get a bust-ass, basically irrelevant home console, outside of a couple of select first-party games. Lord knows I didn't buy a single Switch game in 2018. But it's just absolutely laughable. Anyway, let me know in the comments section below anything you think about the Switch Lite. Do you think it's a great idea? Do you think it's a terrible idea? Are you going to buy 7 of them? Or what's the deal? Are you going to get, for some reason, a regular Switch that you already have to play on your TV, and then one of these that you can't properly transfer your save files over for an extended period of time, just to use on the go because it's slightly smaller, and still runs everything in standard definition at 22 frames per second? Let me know anything to do with it in the comments section below. Hit the appropriate button to let me know how I did on the video, and while you're at it, why not head on over and hit the subscribe button and even ring the little notification bell. Granted, getting a notification from YouTube in current year about a new video upload or live stream or whatever is a whole other story, but hey, at least you can say you tried, am I right? As always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the rest of the videos in my channel.